All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tom Arbey, and for today's WonderTalk, we are joined by Kurt Daniel, the CEO of Ubersmith. Kurt has impressive experience in software and SaaS, and he has worked at companies such as MongoDB, which is now, it was a startup and it's now worth 12 billion USD, and many other successful startups and larger companies such as Worklight, which was acquired by IBM, Parallels, and Microsoft. So Kurt, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
So we recently had the pleasure of welcoming Kurt to Wonderflow's advisory board, which made this the opportune time to sit down with him. So as always, this interview series really aims to talk about customer centricity and what sort of strategies and tools companies can deploy to empower their teams to deliver better products and better services. And for that reason, we invite professionals from many different industries and backgrounds so that we can have open and clear conversations and people can really learn from each other. So today we will talk about the ability to put your customer front and center and driving change. Being part of a larger organization requires you to manage internally as well. And specifically as well about lessons from open source that people in consumer experience roles or consumer insight roles can really apply in their own day-to-day. So, Kurt, that was the intro. Can you talk a little bit about yourself, about your current position as the CEO of Ubersmith and what you guys do, and talk a little bit more about your past experiences?
Sure, thanks. I've been in technology for more than 20 years now, including B2C and B2B segments. For the last 6 years, I've been leading Ubersmith. It's a subscription management software company with customers all over the world. We help organizations of any size with recurring or metered billing for anything you can imagine, customer management, sales quoting, order management, infrastructure management, help desk ticketing, reporting analytics, and other functionality. We appreciate being able to help our customers automate and connect important parts of their business in an ongoing fashion so they can serve their consumers and business customers better. We're always looking at ways we can understand our customers better, serve our customers better with our technology and also with our people, and track new metrics, both externally focused ones and internally focused ones. Prior to Ubersmith, I worked at small, medium, and large companies, serving consumers, businesses, IT departments, developers, and partners with either applications, infrastructure, or tools. I've been lucky to work with great customers and great partners and work on important future-oriented projects in the areas of databases, analytics, mobile, and the internet in general.
Okay, impressive list. Yeah, and as I said earlier, it's I think very relevant to invite people from different industries as well, and your background really helps with that. And I think when we spoke earlier, you mentioned a very, very interesting point, which is actually the step that follows after you've started to collect feedback from your market. That's the ability to start sharing these insights effectively within your organization and really embedding them throughout different parts of it. So I think this is where your experience really comes in as well. So how do you start motivating different departments around you? If you're the one in charge of collecting this feedback, how do you start motivating other people and other departments to actually start listening to the customer more and start using these insights better?
Absolutely. I think it depends on a company's size and a company's culture. The way to approach this, but things I've seen work well in a few different environments. One is town hall meetings with the goal of educating in a convenient and nice way. Also, lunch and learn meetings could be done. Sharing the information, the data, the summaries via email, Slack, or other written methods, and executive reviews of the feedback can be quite helpful as well. I think it's important to share when and where it makes sense. To offer really short summaries with more depth for those who want it, so we don't force people into information overload, for example, with everything kind of floating around these days. It's important to spend more time with those who need to see it, act on it to benefit the customer, whether this is a product or engineering or support or, for example, sales to better understand a customer and better support them. At larger companies, you can spend more time and more money on customer centricity research. For example, when I was at Microsoft, we would do focus groups around the country, not just on our own products, but actually to deeply understand our customers, our competitors' customers and their products, not just our own. I think it's critical, maybe above all, to use the right experts and tools along the way, whether these are third-party industry analysts or product experts or solutions like Wonderflow's Wonderboard or Wonderwork, for example.
Yeah, and the town hall meetings. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think that might be useful.
Sure. I think it's a way to make it a little more personal, say, versus just sending out like kind of an email summary. At our company, we like to do the town hall, show exciting new things that you haven't seen before. So we would rather not send the summary in some cases for an important new thing before, because it kind of takes away the surprise and the excitement. And so having our company join together, my last company did this, and from the CEO, every employee involved, it's just a nice way for someone to kind of talk to it, either in person or in these days, virtually, and to really bring life to it and really walk through it in a very strong way. And I think it can be much more effective and also more fun as well.
Yeah. Makes sense. And it's also about building sort of a momentum there, I guess, right? So getting people on board, making them actually feel like, hey, this is exciting. That's a very good step there.
It's a really, sometimes we'll do like product demos, specifically with the customer analytics and analysis. We kind of treat it like a demo, even if there's not a demo, but sometimes there's obviously some software that's holding the data or the analysis or the results. And then we'll just very quickly follow up even during the meeting and share, all the depth for those who care about it most.
Cool. Yeah. And one of the companies you've worked for in the past or worked with was an open source company, and open source at its core really requires you to build communities, I think. So can you talk a little bit about that? How what your strategy was there, and how did you leverage the feedback and the input you get from these communities? They're, I think, by definition, more active communities. So how did you use that information to improve the product or service you were working on?
Sure. I've been following or connected to open source for almost 20 years. At Microsoft, we were closely following open source kind of as a competitor, and now it's more of a partner. But it's an interesting model, different from a more proprietary commercial business model. It can really help gather more and better feedback rather than just trying to do everything internally or with a kind of a more traditional model. And the community can really kind of spread. So your adoption, whether it's number of downloads or just usage, if it's depending on the type of product or service, and it's a way to help customers. In many cases, they're helping themselves because they're contributing either feedback or code or something else if it's a software product. But I think it's interesting in at least those three ways. At MongoDB, it was ideal for open source because it was database kind of infrastructure product. I see in the application space less of this. Consumer space, I think can be relevant. And we had a very strong approach to community, in addition to the really differentiated product or technology as well. So very early on, the company offered free community support, which the sales team didn't love, but it worked out great. Open office hours, whether in person or otherwise, online education, really early on, and really putting significant investments into that. And then, at a different kind of level, with some of the largest and most interesting customers, we did a customer advisory council, which we have done also at Microsoft and other companies. And it's, also you can have partner advisory councils as well, which is kind of related to what a customer advisory council would do in terms of feedback, particularly on new programs, ideas, policies, and obviously the new products that you have as well, to get a trusted group to give you kind of early, very high quality, sophisticated feedback, for example. To build the community, I think you can start with something of strong value. It's obviously going to help things. You want to get the word out. You want to tap into existing networks, and leverage this feedback, additional feedback that you can get uniquely from the open source model or another community approach, for example. You can't act on every feedback item, especially if it's a popular product, where you get kind of really flooded or with all these ideas and concepts. But it's at a minimum, it's good to be aware of all the feedback, and then you can basically choose what's going to work best for you and for the market and the customer base in general. And actually, a side benefit for MongoDB was they really got known as a company that was great at community. And it got talked about even outside the database market, and it really enhanced the brand and brought them additional customer interest, which they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, well, I think those are very, very good points. I love the tapping into existing networks. It's something I see in my role, but I think it's something that everybody should be looking at in their specific roles, because you get, as you say, you get high quality feedback from that, and you're able to talk to people in an environment they're actually more comfortable in. So I think it's easier to get conversations going as well, whether this is offline or online. That goes both ways. And then the point about you can't act on every feedback item, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that people might struggle with as well at some point. Like, first you're struggling to collect it, and then you're struggling to actually make sense of it and to rank it, basically. That's something to take home as well, to really think about a strong ranking function for yourself. So how can I make the most
Sometimes
of
it can be counterintuitive as well. You might get a lot of people asking you for something which is just kind of not going to be appropriate for your for your vision and where you see things should really go. And sometimes, like, very few people or even just one person can give you some feedback that you actually should act on, because you can see how it really fits with the unique value proposition that your team can uniquely build. In some cases with the community's help as well.
Yeah, it's the short-term gains versus the long-term strategy and being able to focus as well. But I mean, obviously, it doesn't always make sense to listen to the customer. We just said so. But also, it's not always an easy or logical first step to take. And you must have encountered those sort of situations as well, I guess.
Sure. I can think of a few. When I was an executive at Worklight, we had to learn to avoid listening too hard to certain innovation groups at very large banks and other organizations that would often do meeting after meeting after meeting with us because they were just conceptually interested, or it helped them reach innovation goals, but not core business goals. There wasn't a handoff with a business to sponsor the project and move forward. So that was very frustrating, but I learned a lot from that. In some cases, you can actually obviously successfully work with a group like that. You just have to be more careful. We also had to learn to listen most of the customers that could understand our unique value proposition. We were in a crowded market with many different offerings. This was in a mobile kind of development space, and The ones that really understood what we did and appreciated what we did and could fully act on it were the ones that we had to pay more attention to maximize our success. Listening to the right customers in the right segments at that company actually saved our startup from going out of business because it helped us reach product market fit, in time. And the clock was ticking there. The customers, helped us flesh out the solution, and the way we approached it internally was to use marketing to help find the prospects we could talk to. And these prospects with our sales teams helped make our product apps very clear much faster than we could figure out on our own. So that was a great learning. Another one, when I was an executive at Parallels, a desktop software company, was just seeing negative customer reviews online for the first time. It used to drive us crazy, including our CEO, even if they were far outweighed in quantity by positive reviews. We, over time, learned to view them less emotionally and more rationally. And we realized if you have enough customers, and we did, we had a huge number of customers all over the world, you are going to have some bad reviews. You can't please everyone. Those bad reviews can really help you pinpoint things to prioritize for improvement. Not always true, but often true. And it's obviously not logical to try to act on every idea, or your product will become too bloated, or even worse, you'll never get it released in the first place. Of course, seeing great reviews, on the other hand, can really make your day, give you a nice energy boost for you and for the team.
Yeah.
As a side note, it can be even harder to hear negative feedback. In my experience as a CEO of a company that takes employee feedback very seriously as well. So we've done these employee surveys, these projects, and or you can see the information on Glassdoor, and it feels more personal. Although you can have obviously very close relationships with your customers, because you're spending so much time next to the employees. It feels more personal, for example, and so it's important to just kind of take a deep breath, read through it, understand what motivations may be, and then really it's there to help the company get better. So probably to have more negative feedback would be a plus, because you have more things you can know that are important to your team group, especially if it's not just coming from, say, one person.
Yeah. No, and I think that underlines the need for having maybe unsolicited, but for sure unstructured feedback, where people can just really talk about what they care about, and not just you can have a 1-star rating, but you can also have a 1-star rating with a whole bunch of text to it, which is gonna feed all that information to you. But
that's interesting you bring that up. We're reworking our NPS surveys. Right now we have an external one, and we also have an internal one, and we going to be running them this month. And last year, I think we went a little overboard and had too many questions. For the employee one, I thought it was fine, because they'll take the time, and it's their job. But the customers are busy; they're getting survey requests from multiple companies, and so this year we're taking an extreme approach and just having the NPS question and then an open-ended box. And we think that open-ended box, then I think they'll have more time to fill that out, and it should, in theory, provide us, a better look at what they really care most about. Importantly, in the most convenient way for the customer as possible, because there are literally just 2 questions on the survey. I don't know that I've received questions like this. I mean, I've received rating questions where you rate a product with just 1 star or something, one star question. But in this case, to have the star plus the open-ended, it should hopefully be a good success for us.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's the way that larger platforms like e-commerce platforms, of course, handle a lot of the feedback requests as well, as just giving you the ability to really speak your mind there. So that should have a good impact, and then it's up to the company to make sense of it, of course.
Yeah, and in some cases, obviously, you want to go super deep, so you want to have that very large questionnaire, that kind of thing. Maybe your customer success team or your head of product is walking through a customer in person, for example, an interview or over the phone. But in this case, because we're going to the entire customer base, we want to go very just narrow,
Yep.
and then obviously you just will go deep with a subset.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and probably also segment your customers into potential value or value, so you can actually see, okay, we need to deep dive on these people. And I think it's
Yeah,
always about finding that right balance between having, the ability to listen to a large group of people very easily, but also being able to take a deep dive, doing focus groups, that sort of stuff.
sure. Yeah, at our company, we like to segment on role. So whether you are in finance or IT or sales or operations, for example, we like to segment based on company size. That's a pretty obvious one. And we like to segment on industry, even in cases where the product isn't different for the way they're kind of using it. Although in many cases it is. Those are at least three ways we like to segment. That's a critical point you made.
Yeah, yeah. And you have experience in B2B and B2C. The difference in the feedback that you get is obvious, right? There's different relationships. It's there is a relationship at all. I think for a lot of fast moving products, there, yeah, if it's a relationship, that's hard to define. But how do you see that companies can really leverage that feedback that we're talking about to really make an impact? So for the experience, but also the world around you.
Sure. I think, I think it can benefit customer success, product management. It can, it can help you innovate better, support better. I made some of these comments earlier, but it's just going to make you a much more kind of in tune company and team. And will lead to a more successful business than you have otherwise. So you're going to have better customer loyalty. You're going to have better customer expansion within accounts in many cases, and you're going to have better, lifetime value. I think the best organizations there are in general out there do a great job at gathering feedback, analyzing it, presenting it, acting on it. I don't think they're just lucky or just these kind of internally focused geniuses, in most, if not all of the cases. And I think the made a point earlier, but the teams that use the best tools and analytics to accomplish the work, I think, have a real advantage. Or I go further to say it's actually it's actually like a building block or kind of a required step or component of a kind of a customer feedback kind of analysis strategy. Going forward, I see organizations using new tools and new approaches to gain further advantage or to stay ahead in highly competitive global markets, whether it's B2B or B2C, as you said.
Yeah, no, I love the point you made about the best organizations actually do a great job at gathering feedback and analyzing it. And I think a core message here is as well that you should start early on, because if it's a building block and it's missing when you're down the road, your wall is going to crumble at some point. So
yeah,
starting early. Yeah. Go.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's one good thing is that I've never heard anybody say that, talking to your customers or gathering feedback or really gathering kind of feedback is a bad thing. Like how you act on it, there could be a good or bad there.
Yeah.
But the idea of just kind of listening and observing and measuring, it's hard to disagree with that. And then how much time you spend on it, how much you invest in it, how well you do at it. And how great are the tools you use? How modern are they? How helpful are they? That can really differentiate companies. But I guess all companies want, or all organizations want to do well on this, but some clearly do better than others.
Yeah. No, and I think the intention is there. Usually people are, I think very few people are going to argue, okay, putting your customer at the center of your strategy is weak or stupid. But I think actually making it happen, it's going to be that's the stuff that people are struggling with, basically. I think, we talked to, you mentioned that before, industry analysts. We talked to a lot of them, of course. And
Hmm.
what you hear is that even the largest companies right now, they're struggling to put everything together, right? To get one clear, unified image of the customer or the customer interactions. And that can
Hmm.
happen at a micro level, but also at the macro level, right? It's having a clear image of how are we handling customer requests, or how well are we dealing with complaints, that sort of stuff. That's missing from a lot of organizations. I think that's why you need to start early and look at scalability as well. That's
Yeah, and scalability becomes more important, obviously, as you have more customers. If you have two customers, you can just call them or visit them, maybe if they're nearby. But if you have millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions,
yeah,
or potentially more customers, that's clearly not going to work. So
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great point to wrap this up. I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. It's always is, and well, I hope to speak soon.
cool. Thanks, Tom. Have a great day.